Hello, friends. Welcome to On the Couch program. We are super excited that you'll be joining us. On the Couch is going to be aired every Friday evening at 7 p.m. on our YouTube channel. This program will be focused on answering questions around really difficult topics of finance, family dynamics, parenting, dating, and divorce. So if any of these topics are affecting anyone that you care about or even yourself, please tune in for some biblical answers. We would love to hear from you as well on your own questions. So please send that in to our email address, which will be located in the details below. Thanks so much. We look forward to hearing from you.
Financial problems, troubled family relationships, unplanned pregnancy, broken marriage, delinquent children, or overwhelming grief. Are you burdened by the care of life? Are you feeling hopeless? Friend, whatever you are going through, whatever questions you may have, God has the answers. We invite you to join us on the Couch, a Bible-based program that will give you insight into what the Bible says about these critical issues of life. We present to you On the Couch, finding hope in the midst of a crisis.
The other programs that we have had in the past. And we are sure that this evening's presentation will be no different. With me on the couch this evening is Mr. Tim Hudson. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the couch. I must let you know that Mr. Hudson is a financial advisor, and he's here to share with us. We know that based upon his expertise, he will have something to share with us, and it will be beneficial not just to you as an individual, but also to your family. So again, I really want to welcome him and tell us something, tell the audience something about yourself.
Sure. Again, my name is Tim Hudson. I'm a certified financial planner. I have been helping people for the last 26 years, and I get so much satisfaction out of that. And I enjoy public speaking. I enjoy seminars. I enjoy educating people because there's so much impact you can have when you get your finances in order. My office is right down the street in Cypher Credit Union. We office there. We're not part of the credit union. My firm is Silver Star Wealth Management, and I just enjoy doing what I do, and I'm blessed to be here.
Good. Thank you. How about family?
I'm married. I have two sons. My father was a Methodist minister, so I'm a PK.
Okay, good.
And I learned a lot of great lessons from him, but finances wasn't one of them. So I think that's another driver that got me into this industry.
Okay. Again, we really want to say welcome to you. And as the members of the Fil-Am and the Access Church join together for this program, I know that with you being here, it will be a blessing to us and to individuals who will watch and participate one way or another. So we're getting down to finance. And finance is very, very important in the life of an individual, especially in the life of a family. And when you get your finances wrong, it can hurt the family. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, normally in counseling, I warn couples, finances can pull you apart. And before you know it, you're separated. So we want you this evening to give us and give the audience the financial advice that is necessary for family. And so this evening, I want to ask you, why why is it important to think seriously as a family about your finances?
Good question. Very good question. I think it's important because there are so many lives that are impacted by the way you manage your money, the way that household is managing their finances, the examples they're setting for the children, the impact of being able to send that child to college or not, the impact of having adequate life insurance in case the family loses a income producing member of the family. So there's a lot of impact to the churches, the tithing that's going on, the amount of money that we earn throughout our lifetime is an enormous amount of money. Those are seeds of wealth, those dollars that flow through our budget every month, every year. Those seeds can be consumed, spent on depreciating assets. They can be invested in appreciating assets for your benefit down the line and others. So to whom much is given, much is expected, right? So the God's gifts that we get through us, I believe, needs to be managed properly.
Okay, good. I noticed you mentioned in the answer to the question about children. What's your advice to parents as it relates to financial responsibility for our children? How should we train our children in that aspect?
Good point. Children, as parents, we know, learn from what we do, not what we say, right? So setting an example is a crucial part of teaching your children to be financially responsible. They're going to do what we say. So if we get our budget, our financial house in order, they can learn from that. At some point, you can start paying them an allowance and letting them pay for their stuff instead of you paying for it. And then they need a budget, right? It's like we household budget. You maybe give them a budget at a certain age and they pay for their school needs, their after school extracurricular activities. And if they overspend or overspend, then they suffer the consequences. And then if they have money left over, that's theirs to do what they want to do. So they can invest it in seeds of opportunity and investments and let them participate and see that money, the compounding in an investment or a bank account, see the interest earned, and they can see that growing. But I think it's important for us not to bail them out. I think it's important to allow, as a parent, it's tough, but I think it's important for us as parents to allow them to suffer the consequences when they don't manage money properly and reward them when they do. But teaching them to invest at an early age and teaching them delayed gratification are two important factors I think are important.
Okay, so what age would you recommend that we start giving our children allowance and teaching them budgeting?
Yeah, I think you can probably start teaching some concepts at pre-elementary school. You know, okay, Susie, if we buy this, then we can't do that. What's your choice? Allow them to suffer the consequences and rewards of delayed gratification. Maybe in elementary school or junior high, they might start learning having to pay for their own stuff, their sports activities, their dance lessons, music lessons. So they take on that responsibility. They get their allowance, and they have that responsibility of managing that account. And if it's overspent, then they suffer the consequences. If they manage the money well, they get rewarded by extra money in their account to do what they want to do, maybe invest.
Yes. My wife and I, while we were growing up our children, one of the practices that we had was family meetings. And we would discuss finance in our family meeting. And we allowed the children to have a say
Good point.
into the finance. Because what I found out was that when they knew what the finances were, there are certain things that, they wouldn't ask for. Do you think there are some parents, though, who believe that should not be the prerogative of the children? Leave them out of it. Do you think it is a good idea? It's a good thing? And we started from the children were very small, and coming up, we would have family meetings along the way. But what, as a financial advisor, what is your recommendation for that?
I think that is great. I think that's great because they can see the circumstances and seeing how the parents are handling it. And you setting examples at that point too. So I think that's great. I think it's very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
They understand the situation, whatever it is.
Okay. Yes. So you would advise those who are watching us this evening that this is a good practice that they should have in their family.
I do. And not only it's a teaching moment, it's a good time to explain some concept with them. This is our income coming in. This is how much we've got to tithe. This is how much we need to set aside for emergency fund. This is what we have to invest for the future of your college, our retirement. And this is what we have left to spend. So let's decide as a family how to spend it.
Yes, we tend to be indebted at times, or family. What is your advice to families as it relates to indebtedness? Do you think that it is something that we should do? It is inevitable? What is your advice?
Yeah, there's a saying, that is not necessarily bad, but the mismanagement of money is where we get in trouble. I see debt as good debt, bad debt. And what I mean by that, good debt can be used to buy a house. You're buying an appreciating asset, provided you can afford it and your budget allows it. But you don't want to get over the limits. Your household expenses, including the mortgage, should not be over 28% of your net income, and your overall expenses, including fall fixed payments, should not be over 35% of your income. There's that. Mary Hunt is a writer of some good budgeting and financial tools. She states, and I wrote it in my last quarterly newsletter, debt is an arrogant assumption on the future. And I do believe that. I do believe it is. But I think debt can be a tool, but it needs to be managed right. You don't let the debt manage you. And you want to pay attention to your percentage of debt to your net worth as well, too.
Okay. So I'm indebted, and it is choking me, so to speak. And I'm getting confused. I'm getting jittery. We are developing argument in the family. What do we need to do to be debt free?
Yeah, I think to begin with, I always believe in any planning you do, you have to find your purpose and passion in life. That means doing what you're called to do, doing what you have peace and hope in doing. A good tool, by the way, to consider is, first of all, pray to God for what you want to do. Second, go to CliftonStrengthQuest.com. They have a good evaluation form that can help you identify your gifts, your strengths, and your interests. And this is great, by the way, for high school students before they get started. But it's never too late to get on the right path. Yeah. So I think finding your place in life, what your purpose and passion is in the beginning, because that will give you the peace, that may give you the motivation and the discipline to stay on track on getting out of debt. To begin with getting out of debt, you've got to develop a cash flow plan. And that is maybe looking back over the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, and find out where your money is going. And ask yourself, is that a need or is that a want? Because there's two differences there. Needs are something we absolutely have, but those can be reduced as well too. We need transportation, but we can always downsize from a Lexus down to a lower cost car or smaller house. And then there's wants, and there's nothing wrong with wants, but as long as it fits within your financial plan. So identify those needs and wants, and then go back and ask yourself, can those be reduced? Think of it this way. If we had a 10% pay cut, all of us, we would still live. We would probably still drive our same car. Johnny would still go to T-ball. We would find a way for it to happen. So give yourself a 10% pay cut if you need to, and then maybe increase it over time to find the money to start paying down on the credit cards, getting out of debt, because that's the bad debt. That credit card is paying 18%. If I offered you a guaranteed 18%, you would find the money to invest in that investment, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So you guaranteed 18% by paying off that credit card. So make sure you find a way of doing that. There's two ways of doing that. Dave Ramsey, by the way, is real good on cash management, debt management. He gets out of bounds on some things, but he's got that nailed. And one way he suggests paying off the debt is starting with the smallest account first, and then taking that, once that account is paid off, you take that amount plus the minimum payment on the next smallest account, and you snowball until you get out of debt. But here's the challenge. At the same time, you need to be setting aside money in an emergency fund, because if the car breaks down, you don't want to put it on your credit card. It's a catch-22. So we have to be building that emergency fund up as we're paying down the debt. Once you get your budget, extra cash found in your budget, you can balance it out between those two. I prefer to do it a different way on paying off the debt because it's quicker. I'd like paying the highest interest rate off first, and then move down, then snowballing down to the next highest. You'll get the debt paid off quicker, and you'll save some money. The other way will give you more immediate gratification because you see that small account drop away, but the highest interest, starting with the highest interest rate, would give you quicker results.
Okay. So, and that is one of the ways that you recommend that a family, an individual, become debt free.
Yes, they've got to start with the budget. Got to find that cash, find the cash to build an emergency fund up and pay off the debt. And that starts with the budget. And then after that, to stay debt free, if they want to stay debt free, they can pay bills with old fashioned cash and checks. There's nothing wrong with having a credit card, I believe, because we do need credit for some things, and it's convenient to buy stuff with a credit card. But I would suggest that if you do use your credit card, you pay it off every single month. Whatever balance you charge, that is paid off at the end of every month.
Okay. Yes. So I want the families to take note of that, because ultimately, when we are debt free, we are less stressed. And therefore, this is something, and stress is a killer. So this is something that we need to bear in mind and look at. Mr. Hudson, we have our families, and one of the things that personally hit me as my children were growing up was the costs for tuition. I was hit with a brick wall because, yes, I knew that I was supposed to be preparing for their higher education. Nonetheless, I didn't expect that the cost would be so much. What are your advice you want to give to families in terms of preparing for their children's education?
Yeah, you're right. The cost is rising. Actually, the inflation rate with college is much higher than the general inflation rate for other goods and services. It's a major expense. The first step, I believe, is to put enough life insurance on the parents who are going to be funding that education through investment vehicles or whatever, because if they're not around, how is that money going to get in that account? So that is a foundation. Most people want to start with the investments and overlook the insurance. That's a mistake in my opinion. I think both income producing parents should have enough sufficient life insurance to protect that family and that family's income going into the future. That includes funding that college fund. Once that is done, then the great savings tool today for college planning is 529 college plans. A lot of parents and grandparents are funding these, and the advantage of those is that this money can be invested. There's a lot of time horizon accounts that can be more aggressive when the kids are younger and shift to more conservative investments when the kids are older. They automatically adjust for the portfolio and risk. The advantage is that that money can come out tax-free, including the earnings, if it's used for higher education purposes. And that's a huge bonus there. I have a lot of grandparents making gifts for the children every year, putting a gift card in the mail to them. You know, mom and pop deposit X amount of dollars in your 529 plan. And that's an appreciating asset gift instead of a toy. Our parents can make gifts. So I think that is the best way. But if someone says, well, I'm not sure if my son or daughter or grandchild is going to go to college, then you can always open up an UTMR account. The problem with the UTMR accounts is that there's no tax benefits associated. It's going to be taxed. And then when the children turn 21, they have access that's legal to their money, so they can get the red Corvette instead of deciding to go to school. You have no control over that. Yeah. So I like the control. I like the tax benefits. And if one child doesn't use that 529, anybody in the immediate family can go back to school, including the parents. And there's some other exceptions too as well that can allow for that money to be used by others.
Okay. This program is not just going into the U.S., around the U.S., but across the world. So there might be those who, in their country, they don't have a 529 that they could tap into as it relates to saving. What are your advice for those persons, though? What should they do? What can they do?
Yeah, saving in any investments, put that money aside in any investments. Now, the challenges are as they get closer to that the school age, starting school, and the need for the money, then it needs to become more liquid, more safe, and not high risk.
Okay. So this is one of the ways in which we can save for our children higher education.
Sure.
So that at least it doesn't, as it did me, don't hit you.
Right.
And then, because we need to encourage our children, education is power. And we need to, so that they can take their rightful place in society.
Sure. And some 529 plans also cover some certified trade institutions as well. And I did have a client, I think there's a possibility that it may cover some international schools if they belong to some accredited agency here in the United States. I just don't know the details of that. I would check with the 529 plan company too.
Okay. And we want to say to our viewers that feel free to send in your questions, and even after this program, we can answer some of those questions as it relates to finance. Families need to plan for their future. And I'm one of those who believe strongly in family get-together, recreational activities. What is your advice to families as it relates to planning for their future need? Because there are some families who live from paycheck to paycheck, sadly to say. So what is your advice to these families as they grow up, as they increase, and husband, wives, children, no matter whether it's a nuclear family or it's not, what are your advice to them as it relates to planning for their future needs?
Well, I think you stated it earlier. A good point is having family meetings and family goals. Say, if we do this, and one thing, if you're struggling with debt, this is a good approach. Go into your budget, develop that budget, find the extra dollars, and decide how it's going to be put towards debt, how it's going to be put towards the emergency fund. Then develop a plan and find an accountability partner. This could be a spouse, a friend, a relative, and share your goals and your plan with that person and say, these are the action items I want you to hold me accountable for. And and this could be in a family setting as well too. Well, we're going to develop these goals as a family. If we do these things, we're going to take that vacation next summer or 2 years from now. So develop a reward and consequence system. and have an accountability partner. It could be each other within the family, and say, if we do these things, this is our reward. But if we don't do these things, this is our consequence. This is what we have to give up. So that may help find the motivation and the discipline to get to where you need to be.
Okay. Since we have started, I notice quite a few times you have mentioned the whole matter of budget. There are some people who throw that through the window. Is budget really important in this 21st century?
Yeah, amen, it is. Let's call it cash flow plan instead.
Okay.
I think that's more palatable to a lot of people. I agree. Budgeting is kind of antagonizing. It's smothering. But yes, it boils down to budgeting, cash flow planning. That is the foundation, though. If you don't start there, then you cannot find that money to create that emergency fund. You cannot find that money to pay off that debt, to plan for college, retirement, buy the necessary insurance for risk management that you need. Yeah.
Okay. And as it relates to emergency fund, is emergency fund supposed to be just for emergency?
Yes, it should be. And I feel that it should be, because if you go into it and say, okay, we're going to take that vacation on this emergency fund, get out there, the car breaks down, then you have a true emergency, and then you have to go to the credit cards. So emergency funds should be strictly for emergencies.
Okay.
In my opinion.
How much do you recommend that a average family put towards, and I'm speaking of percentage wise now, put towards their emergency fund?
Well, I would say on average, it's recommended you have between 3 to 6 months of expenses, monthly expenses in that emergency fund. And it's going to vary depending on your personal situation, how many income earners you have bringing income into the house. Do you have a second line of defense, such as a 401k balance with loan provisions that you could access if needed? Are there investments outside the 401k, joint individual investment accounts? There's a problem in keeping too much money in cash, because if you're earning 1%, you're going broke safely if all your money's in that account. So we have to grow our money. But then again, if you put it all in investments and you need the money in the account and the market is down, you're suffering the loss in taking it out. So it's a balancing act per individual and per their situation. But on average, 3 to 6 months of expenses is a good number to use. And remember, the rule of 72 is important. If you divide 72 by the interest rate you're earning on the money, it will tell you how long it will take to double your money. So if all of your money is in cash and CDs earning 1%, it's going to take 72 years at 1% to double your money. But if your money is invested maybe in a moderate portfolio where you might can average, not guaranteed, but possibly average 6% over a 10-year period per year, then it will take 12 years to double your money if you can earn that rate of return. So keep the rule of 72 in mind when you're investing.
Okay. Do you recommend families to have some form of investment? Absolutely.
All families need investments. For the emergency fund should be in cash. That should be your safe money. But we're going to have to, when we're working today, we have our paycheck coming in. When we stop working, where's that paycheck going to come from? Social Security will not be enough. So that's where you need to turn your investments into a retirement income stream for your lifetime.
Okay, so it is safe to say to family that they need to check out some investment portfolio and make sure that they invest for the family.
Absolutely. And for most people, the first place to start is at work. If you have a 401k at work, and that's a great way to start the investing process. I will not stop at the 401k. There's other investments you can do as well. Perhaps you qualify for a Roth IRA. And by the way, if you pay your children a allowance, that is earned income that they can use to make Roth IRA contributions. Can you imagine a little child having an allowance and he or she's saving their money and putting that extra money in that Roth IRA at a young age? And they have to have earned income. It's a good idea to have a paper trail My wife, being a CPA, she filed a tax return, even though one wasn't necessary for our teenagers. But have a paper trail, keep good records. But if they have earned income, they can put that money in a Roth IRA.
Okay. So I want to again say to families, investment is vital for your family. And as Mr. Hudson said earlier, there's going to come a day when the paychecks will stop. And you would need to know that your investment that you have made is able to take care of your financial needs as you go along. Everybody today, Mr. Hudson, has credit card. And we touched on it briefly a little earlier. But what's the importance of credit card? Is it necessary? Do you recommend family members to have 2, 3, 4 credit cards? What is your take on that as we advise our viewers?
I personally do not believe it's wrong to have a credit card, provided you manage it and it doesn't manage you. I don't know if you necessarily need to have more than 1 or 2, but you should certainly pay the balance off every month. Having good credit is important, and it's hard to obtain it without a credit card. But it's important to pay that balance off every month. It's the debt in our lives, in our financial house, is like weeds in a garden. It's going to smother you and smother your budget and not allow you to plant seeds of wealth. So manage that debt. Don't let the debt manage you. And it's okay, in my opinion, to have a credit card, but just pay that balance off every month. If you cannot manage it, then shut it down. Don't have any debt. No credit cards.
Okay. So it is quite
It takes
fine.
discipline.
But how many do you recommend?
Oh, I don't think more than 1 or 2. Well, I take that back. We do have more than 2, but my wife and I, we use 1 credit card when we shop online and when we go to restaurants. That's our high risk credit card. Mm-hmm. And we certainly pay all the credit cards off every month, but that is when we're using it in a dangerous setting. We don't mind if we have to replace that card. But the other credit card, when we have important recurring monthly bills tied to that, we don't use that for any shopping purchases. So perhaps if you manage your debt, you might want to take that approach. But just pay the debt off each month, because it's compounding, smothering you especially with the high interest rates they charge.
Okay. So it is not recommended for you to get a credit card in which you can't pay it.
Absolutely. If you're not disciplined to manage it, don't get it so that it doesn't manage you.
Okay.
Go on a cash basis.
Yes. And that is vital. That is vital. We have different ways in which we spend our money. And it is often said that the wives, even when they say they have no money, there is some money somewhere around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's your advice to family in terms of being upfront, in terms of being open with your account, your money? We did a program earlier at the start that speak about your money, my money, our money. But what is your advice to family as it relates to that? Should we be open with each other? And when I say we now, I'm speaking of husband and wives, in terms of our finance, or is it okay to, especially for the ladies, not to be as straightforward? Because there are some husbands, if they know that their wives have the money, they will always find a use for it.
I see that a lot. I see that wives are typically more conservative and more prudent in setting aside funds, like you mentioned. I believe it's important to have honesty in that relationship, true honesty. But I believe one spouse may be setting aside funds, not necessarily hiding it, but maybe not sharing it. and it's for their both mutual benefit. It's not necessarily too bad, I guess, if it's for the benefit of the family. But I think honesty is important, and maybe that spouse who's doing it might want to discuss that with the other spouse. This is why I'm doing it, so that not to necessarily hide it, but just let the other spouse know it's for both of them, for their benefit. But there's a risk within the other spouse may oh wow, I can do that.
Exactly. That's what I was.
So that's a balancing act there. So but I do believe honesty is important, but in that relationship. So that's a tough question there.
We know every day we wake up, some people take it for granted that they are the one that wake them up, or their alarm clock that they set woke them up.
Mm-hmm.
But those of us who believe in God know that we owe our lives to the heavenly being. And therefore, we are considered to be stewards. Hence, although we may say the house is mine, the car is mine, the reality is that God blessed us and he owns it and has given it to us to manage, including our family.
Absolutely.
Therefore, the point I'm getting at is some people don't see the need of tithing. There are those who see it as an Old Testament thing. And therefore, there is no need in this 21st century for something like that. Also, there are those who think that they should not incorporate their children into this. What, as a financier, what's your advice to both those who are Christians and those who are not, as it relates to tithing?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's stated throughout the Bible. God owns everything. He owns us. He provides us with the houses and the homes and the income to produce that, and the talent and the gifts to generate the income. So he blesses us in many ways. And personally, as a Christian, I believe it's important to give back to God. He's entrusting us with, as trustees. And I think to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think it's important to be a good trustee and to give back to God. If as a Christian, and in the Bible, we learn that we should put God first in everything, and that includes all the blessings He gives us.
Okay, I may have an unbelieving spouse. I think tithing is okay. My spouse believes that it is a way for the church to make money. The question I asked before, because we have people watching this program who are not Christians, but one of our objectives is to advise them, because you don't have to be a Christian to tithe.
Sure.
And if you believe the Bible says that those who are faithful to God in tithing, there is a blessing that the Lord offers. Mark you do not tithe to be blessed, but because you're blessed, you tithe. So what could I say to my spouse? Because this is causing a rift between us. I believe in tithe and she doesn't, and it is the family budget, the family money. How do you suggest or recommend that I go about this? Should I stop tithing, or should I find a way to get my spouse to agree with me, or should it be that I just do it and leave him or her to be convicted maybe down the road?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think you can sit down with your spouse and have a discussion and hopefully come to the same opinion of the one who wants to put God first in everything. If not, then perhaps you can agree to disagree and maybe partition some of the monies out, whether one who wants to tithe can tithe, and certainly pray for the other one. But I think it's important. I mean, God's first in everything in your life. Mm-hmm. So, You do what, and if the other one disagrees with you putting God first in your life, then that's a problem I don't really know how to solve. I'm not a marriage counselor,
Yeah.
but I would be putting God first in my life and everything.
Okay. I want to switch a bit and speak about the whole matter of insurance. How important is insurance in the life of a family? And do you recommend families to have insurance, whether it be life insurance, property insurance? What's your recommendation on that?
Absolutely. After you get your cash flow foundation, risk management is a cornerstone. And the problem with life insurance is that you can't predict the future, and you can't buy it when you need it. You can't buy home insurance after your home burns down. You can't buy life insurance after you lose an income producing spouse. And it's not just income producing spouses. Just stay-at-home spouses generate a lot of economic activity for that home that needs to be replaced. Childcare, house cleaning, prepping the food, taking the kids to and from activities. So life insurance is certainly, especially for younger people, your earning capacity going forward into the future can be enormous. Take the time and calculate that at an inflation rate, and you might be surprised at how many dollars will flow through your household. Then maybe take a few percentage of that, 10, 15, 20% of the side, and put that in maybe an investment account at X percent, and see how much money that would grow to. That would open your eyes. But that income needs to be replaced in the event something happens to one of the spouses. I'm not a big fan of putting life insurance on children. There's nothing wrong with it, but provided the spouses have adequate life insurance on themselves. Mm-hmm. Next is disability income protection. Again, the amount of money you earn over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is going to be an enormous amount of money. If you get in an accident, have a stroke, and you lose that earning capacity, that money should, we correct to insure the cars and the homes, but it's important we insure the goose that lays those eggs too. And then you get into your home and automobile coverage. And for those who have significant assets, you may want to consider umbrella liability policy that protects after you go through the limits of the home and auto as additional coverage above and beyond that. Okay. And as we get older, we age, right? Mm-hmm. So we should at some point consider long-term care insurance. This is the type of care you would need if you're not able to care for yourself, such as in a nursing home or stay at home. Most people want to stay home as long as possible. This will allow you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In our financial planning, we oftentimes do not plan for what will happen when we are off the scene. And as a minister, I have had to mediate with families. I remember there was a family, the father died and a will was not left. Well, there was a will, but he had changed it and it was not properly done. And the siblings were at loggerhead with each other. What is your recommendation as it relates to a person's last will and testament? Some people don't see the need to have a will. But personally, I believe it is very important. But what is your take on leaving a will, because putting a will in place because we never know what will happen after we're gone?
Yeah, good point. That's another cornerstone of financial planning, is estate planning and business planning, and having a will, but also a will determine what will be left to whom. One of the things it will do, but it does not include life insurance or retirement accounts. So in addition to will, you want to make sure that your beneficiaries on your life insurance is correct and on your retirement plans are correct, because that will determine where those assets go. The will determine where the non-retirement accounts and the non-life insurance assets go. And that is a very important document that we need. And as you mentioned earlier, family meetings may be a good time to get the family together and discuss what would happen if mom or dad dies. This is what we want you kids to do. And it's important, I feel, to leave a letter to your family dictating your wishes. It's not legal, but it gives them guidance as to what you want maybe your funeral to be, how you want them to handle things, in addition to the will. But you also want to make sure you have a living will, a power of attorney, healthcare directives. Those documents are important. And perhaps a trust, depending on your situation. But I believe you can pass on some legacy principles in your estate planning as well. My wife and I, we have trust set up for our assets to go in for the benefit of our kids. But in order for them to get money out of those trusts, they have to do several things. They have to have a financial plan. They have to earn a dollar, and for every dollar they earn, they have to give X amount of dollars to a Christian-based organization. Then they have access to some funds. The more they earn, the more they give, the more they can take out of the trust. So you can stipulate with trust, trust can be used for a lot of different needs, especially if you have a special needs child. A special needs trust is a great tool to help protect some assets for that child and allow them to qualify for some other government benefits while not subjecting those assets to those expenses. A living trust is a way to manage some assets for the family where you can name your son or daughter as trustee of that trust, kind of put your hand around them while you're still alive and teach them how to manage those assets.
Okay.
So this trust can be used for a lot of different purposes. And for those who are young and may not be at a stage where they need a trust yet, they might want to stipulate in their talk with an attorney and see if they might want to consider putting a testamentary trust clause in their will. So what that will do is no trust is created, no expense of it now, but if something happens to the parent, a trust will be created per the will for the benefit of the children, according to the stipulations, to be managed by whomever. Okay. So get with an attorney and discuss your estate planning needs, because it varies by family and needs, but but estate planning is very important. Having those legal documents in place is very important.
Okay. Do you recommend that people who are a part of a religious organization, a church, so forth, that they leave something behind for such an organization? For example, I'm a part of a church, and if I die, my asset, it is always good to leave a percentage towards the church that I'm a part of, or the religious organization that I'm a part of. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I believe God puts it on our hearts what to do, and I think, I think that's between you and God. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think a lot of people leave their IRAs to churches and nonprofit organizations, because instead of it being taxable to a beneficiary who may not need it, it could go tax-free to the church or nonprofit organization. So, a lot of people do that. There's a lot of different estate planning techniques and strategies depending on what the person wants to have happen. And there's a way to do it tax efficiently too, to minimize taxes as well. So a lot of people do that. As beneficiaries of accounts or gifting. For example, if someone owned a business and they have a very low cost basis in that business, or stock, someone was gifted some stock at a very low cost basis. If they sold that stock or sold that business, they would be bombarded with taxes. Well, there's some strategies with charitable gift trust that you could gift that stock or that business to a charity or a church, and in return get an income stream for life. So there's all kinds of charitable strategies that can be used depending on what the client's objectives are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So in finances, a family, an individual, oftentimes are if they are not earning enough,
Mm-hmm.
they oftentimes not so much borrow from an institution, but from individuals, which I know we looked at debt, but this is another part of debt, which sometimes develop conflict because I might borrow, but I'm not able to repay what I borrow. And it sometimes bring conflict
Mm-hmm.
among, and sometimes even sever friendship among friends. Is it okay for a family, an individual, to, if they are not able to meet certain demands, is it quite all right to go this route? Or do you recommend that they still go to an institution to do this?
I'm not sure, but I believe there's a scripture. I'll have to look it up that talks about the risk of borrowing money from much family.
Yes, in
and friends.
Proverbs.
Yes, okay. So I see some risk in that, and that can sever friendships and family sever, relationships very much. So I would probably caution against that. Obviously, as parents, we do tend to help our kids out some, and I think that's okay, provided they learn the lessons. If not, sometimes we have to exhibit tough love and let them figure it out on themselves, allow God to work through them. That's a tough question. I guess it depends on the relationship between the family members or the friendship. I would probably caution against it, as the Bible does, I believe. So I say that's pretty risky. I would try to avoid dividing families and friendships like that.
Okay, so you would more recommend an institution?
Yes. I
Okay.
think and that may be the more costly route in terms of interest rate, but how important is that relationship?
Yeah. Sure. Land is a good asset.
Mm-hmm.
What are your advice in guiding family along that route for land, to purchase land and to have that as one of the assets that the family could have going forward? Is this something that instead of investing in maybe stocks or so forth, is this something that you advise as one of the ways in which, because you can say that's an investment too.
Absolutely.
Is this something that you would recommend, or is it better to go into stocks and all these other instruments as it relates to investment?
Sure. That's a very good point. Actually, you can invest in real estate through some investments themselves. I am a big advocate of investing in land if you get the right land at the right place at the right location. And very important, you can afford it. You have your financial house in order. If you do, land can be I think it's in Ecclesiastes that tells us give portions to 7, yes, even 8.
Yes,
diversify, allocate, right? It's important. You can allocate within the investment. You can also add land to that picture. But we don't want to put all our assets in one bag. We don't want to put all of our investments in land. We want to have investments that we can diversify, maybe have some land here, a house. And if you do go into housing and real estate, be cautious with that. There's good times to buy real estate, 2008. And when's a good time to sell it? At the top. Yeah. So I think as long as you can afford it, it doesn't exceed your debt. And one common question I get is we're paying 3%, or let's call it 4% on our mortgage note. Should I pay it off? And I tell clients, if it gives you peace of mind, there is nothing wrong with getting out of debt. That's a good move. But if you're not participating in your 401k plan and getting that tax deduction and maybe a 3% match, free money in that 401k plan, I would not pay off that debt. Now, keep in mind, it depends on the client's risk tolerance. If they only invested in CDs earning 1%, that's not a good decision because they're going to go broke safely. But I would pay off the mortgage in that case because they're paying 4%, earning 1%. But if they can maybe average 6% and pay 4%, they're leveraging the money 2% plus the tax deduction, plus the benefit of putting into that 401k, getting maybe the 3% match and whatever tax deduction they could potentially get to. So every case is different. There's nothing wrong getting out of debt. We want to live debt free, but there's good debt and bad debt. Be aware of that.
Okay. As we wind up this program this evening, I would like you to speak to our viewers on the whole matter of making good financial decisions individually and for their family. So please, just briefly, in a minute or two, address them as to what are you advising as the financial advisor for you individually and also for those who have families.
Sure. I think it's in Proverbs, tells us have a plan, right? The wise seek counsel. So I think it's important for families and individuals to start with budgeting, start with a plan, have a plan, seek advice, seek an advisor. You can go to letsmakeaplan.org, letsmakeaplan.org, and find a certified financial planner near you. Call us. We'll be happy. We offer free consultations as well, complimentary consultations as well. So please feel free to, but letsmakeaplan.org. You need a plan. First of all, you need to know what your purpose and passion is. You need to know what you're trying to achieve, and find the willpower and the discipline and the passion to get there. Develop the budget. Make sure you have risk management covered, and then move on to investments. Then we move on to tax management because we want to minimize taxes legally, of course. And then estate plan, retirement income planning for the day when their paycheck stops. We've got to have a plan for that. And then estate planning. Those pictures are important. If you need help, I believe most people need to have a plan and a financial planner to help them. Is really the beginning. But if you need help in staying the course, find an accountability partner. It can be two spouses, and use that reward consequence program. And don't set and forget it. Life happens to change frequently, so we want to review our plan at least annually and meet with your financial planner annually to update as needed.
Okay, Mr. Hudson, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the advice that you have given. Thank you for the way in which you have answered the questions asked. And we hope our program here this evening would be beneficial to those of our viewers and will help them to make better financial decisions for themselves and for their family. I say to you, my friends and family, that I want you to know that God loves you and He wants you to be financially secure. Therefore, don't let these advice go unnoticed. Make sure that you practice these things, because this program is to help you, not just as a family, but individually, financially, to help you to be better financiers so that your family can benefit, you can benefit. And if you follow these tips, that vacation that you long for, you will be able to afford. Please remember to join us. Remember to tune in next week as we continue to be on the couch. May God richly bless you. May He keep you. And may you be better financially as you go forward. God bless you.
Hello, friends. We are super excited that you have been able to be a part of the On the Couch program. I'm sure that a lot of you are really enjoying this and maybe even have other questions that are outside of this program. We would love to help you through that and point you in the direction of what the Bible says about those things. If you have any other questions or interest on what this is all about, please look into the details below on access which is a wonderful community. It's a church located in Sugar Land who can help you through this. If you want to know more about that, just check out the link. And also, please hit the like button.